Hello, everyone. Today I'm going to be speaking to you about potential action research project. The focus of this action research project is to find differentiated instruction strategies for the specific help of both MLL and special education students. So, to start off talking about why this research is needed, the MLL or multilingual learner students populations in Rhode Island has increased significantly in the last 10 years. If we take a look at our graph on the right, we can see that the number of MLL students has increased to almost double the number that it was in 2012, 2013, than it is in 2022, 2023. So that doubling of MLL students makes this population extremely abundant in our school systems, as well as um, our percentages and our scores for students here. So the MLL population in comparison to general education students have a 38% gap in both achievement and proficiency in math and language arts, according to the RICAS testing that Rhode Island does. Along with the MLL population, the special education population has also been on the increase. The graph over here shows the number of students that are being serviced in Rhode Island as of June 2023. So you can see a pretty significant population of special education students in schools today. But again, with that, we're looking at a large gap in achievement and proficiency at 27% for our special education students, according to the RICAS testing. So, with that huge gap in proficiency, what we have to start looking at is what we can do as teachers to help close that gap and reach all of our students who have diverse needs. So, to start with the purpose of this action research project, it is to increase the engagement and performance of both MLL and special education students. The goal of this research is to kind of create a tool for teachers, especially in our building, to use to assist in their planning for the diverse learners that we have. So, create some sort of document that we'll speak about later to help with our planning needs, and also to allow this collaboration with different differentiation strategies within your own departments and across all of the departments in our school. So, what we're going to be looking at in this study is a mixed method of data collection. We're going to be looking at both qualitative and quantitative data in order to assess the effectiveness of the differentiation strategies that are going to be utilized. So, we're going to be looking at observational journals written by our teachers, teacher surveys, post unit group interviews where teachers will be able to analyze and look at the data as our qualitative methods, and as a quantitative method we would be using some sort of standardized post unit assessment, so we are able to get a more accurate measurement of the different strategies and how well they worked in idea of student performance in these certain areas. So, involvement that our teachers would need to have is we can start this on a small scale as one department in the school, or we can start it as a larger group in many departments. But to keep our test subjects kind of consistent, you want to have teachers that teach all one grade of students and the same subject. So when we're gathering data, we want to have teachers who are teaching the same curriculum to their students. So an example of that could be all teachers of 10th grade biology or all teachers of 9th grade English to be working in a collaborative group to start. Involvement would also include kind of group planning with lesson planning before this study is implemented, reflective journals, daily use of these journals in order to record student engagement and student performance on a day-to-day basis, and at the end, another group interview with collaboration with your group for data analysis and discussion on the different strategies that were being utilized. The timeline for this study would go over multiple weeks per unit. So I suggest doing this study, not only just one unit, but to see if it is a repeatable statistic with the different strategies that would be utilized. So starting off with week 1, teachers would meet and discuss a plan, discuss the strategies that would be put in place, where each teacher would be using one differentiation strategy for the entire unit. So each teacher would pick the strategy that they would be using throughout the entirety of the unit to see how those strategies would be effective or not with their students. Weeks 2 to 5 or 6, depending on how long the unit would be, teachers will be implementing these strategies along with taking daily reflective journals, focusing on either the success or failure of the strategy, student attitude, motivation, and things along those lines. Week 7, after the unit test would be given, teachers will reconvene with a group interview, analyzing that data, not only the post-unit test scores, but also the reflective journals, and creating something that I like to call a talking table to be formed and used in either the repeat when we're looking at the next unit, or to create a document where teachers can refer back to for different differentiation strategies to use with their classes that have a mix of MLL, special education, and general education students. So the goal at the end of this study is to create that document, that talking table, that I will show you an example of what it could look like on the next slide, with the data and reflections from the teachers. So creating this talking table will allow an easy document rather than a long, lengthy research paper to read, in order for teachers to quickly glance at it while creating their lessons and make it more likely to be utilized when planning. So the use, and after creating this document, we want teachers to use differentiation and instruction strategies aimed specifically for learners in our community, because we know that the strategies that would work here at North Providence might not work as successfully in other places. So kind of looking at a more focused area for students and the strategies that are going to work in our community to help close the achievement gap between our MLL and special education students. And while the focus is on these groups of diverse students, overall, the differentiation strategies that we would come up with within our study would benefit the whole of all of our students at North Providence, in order to create a more engaging and a more inclusive environment for all of our students. So the last thing that I would like to talk about is what this talking table that we would be creating would look like. So an example could be something that looks like this graphic organizer that I have here. So we would start with the different strategies, some examples that I kind of picked out were tiered assignments, choice boards, project-based learning, flexible grouping, and learning stations. And as we would go through, each teacher would be able to share their reflections and their observations of their students while going through these different learning strategies in that second column. And then finally, we would at the end have our test scores divided into the groups that we're observing, which is our MLL, special education, and general education students. So you can see the difference in success for the different students that we're going to be servicing at our school to create kind of this big document to allow students to have a more prepared and a more diversified teacher when planning and doing other strategies within learning. So all of these things together will allow us to more effectively use differentiation strategies in the workplace and kind of have a tested strategy for our students when we are planning and creating our lessons. Thank you for listening, and I appreciate any feedback you have in our proposal for action research on differentiated instruction, specifically for our MLL and special education students.